Hi you guys, my name is Steven. I'd like to welcome you back to my calibration channel. I'd like to welcome back Maddie and Carl, my two ISO experts. We've been stepping our way through a series of videos about how to estimate measurement uncertainty using the gum from the ISO. Now I'd like to take a break from that very intense examination of details and talk about a broader topic that I think will also be of interest to us. Now we're going to start by asking ourselves a question. What's the relationship between calibration activities and the demands of risk, quality, or asset management on our site? As calibrators, we know we make a ton of measurements all over the place every day. But for the sake of this video, let's examine our activities from the periphery, looking into the center where our customer lives. So first of all, we might make measurements all over the place as we try to assess our impact on the environment that surrounds our site. For example, we would want to look at all of our waste discharges to make sure we're in compliance with whatever agreements we've made with whatever agency. We always want to assure worker safety in potentially hazardous environments. For example, what about a room where we store or use liquid nitrogen? We would certainly measure the oxygen content of that room so we would know it's safe to be in there. Same is true when we measure and control the water temperature in a very large boiler. We measure to make sure that the production environment meets whatever purity standards apply to what's going on there. For example, suppose we have a suite of rooms in which we've engineered a pressure gradient so we can keep the product in the center of the suite and keep contamination out. We certainly would want to protect the reliability of equipment from dangerous and expensive failures, for example, by installing a calibrated vibration sensor on a very expensive centrifuge. And lastly, we always want to control product quality by measuring stuff. For example, the temperature in a fermentation vessel, or the weight of ingredients that we're blending to make one of the parts to a product we sell. And of course, we always monitor continuous product quality through a QA lab. On top of all these kinds of measurements, if we're lucky enough to stay in business long enough, we're going to make a lot of measurements as we develop a new product through our R&D effort. So yeah, we may be making what appears to be a complete blizzard of measurements all the time. But that's no excuse for us to just decide we're measuring everything in the vicinity just so we can appear to be diligent or just because we're terrified of missing something. We have to keep track of the relevance of every measurement we make and its organizational purpose. So from a risk management point of view, we need to be sure that stakeholders are going to be safe, that equipment will function safely and properly, that the products we make will conform to whatever specifications apply to them, and that our processes will continue to behave as we designed them. To cultivate all these things, we need to apply what the FDA used to call a mechanistic understanding of all of our processes from top to bottom. Once we're in that state, we can begin to apply holistically approaches to risk or quality management that we've got to have. Now, who's supposed to run this show? Asset Management Standard ISO 55000 and Quality Standard ISO 9001 are quite clear that top management owns this responsibility and has to maintain it. That's the only way we can continue to be sure of what are we measuring and why are we measuring it. Next, we come to measurement's constant companion, and that's calibration. We know that calibration is always in the vicinity when we're talking about measurements because we know that we can never make a perfect measurement no matter how much money we spend or how hard we try. One of the many reasons for this is that every measurement device we could ever create, no matter what materials we use, will eventually wear out and become less accurate over time. So calibration is just the activities that we use to periodically check on these devices and when necessary adjust them so they continue to deliver enough accuracy and reliability for our business needs. Performing and then managing this calibration process is the only way that we can deliver this kind of assurance to our company. So let's expand just a little bit on this word assurance. We already have seen that measurement creates a risk to the company because measurements are never perfect. We have to contain this risk because we can never get rid of it. So we have to ask ourselves, when are our measurements good enough for our company to use? When will making these measurements and no other measurements allow us to manage the risk to our assets and to our business? As calibrators, we already know we have to deliver measurements to the company. As a matter of fact, we have to deliver something else to the company that's even more important. We have to provide more than just our feeling or our opinion that we're currently containing the risk that's attached to every measurement we make. This assurance has to be both objective and repeatable because there's audit and regulatory risks in this area that may extend all the way to our shareholders. So from the perspective of risk management, we begin first and foremost by identifying our customer. From there, we develop measurements that support our desire to produce a product that's useful to our most important stakeholder. As a matter of fact, customer focus is the first quality principle that's mentioned in the ISO 9001. So our goal has to be to develop measurements and calibration practices that lead directly to the customers who buy our services and our goods. Any measurement that can't be linked to this value chain has no intrinsic value to us or our company. And if it has no intrinsic value, we need to stop making it, or else we're wasting time and resources. Only when we've developed measurements that are valuable to our customer can we truly say that we are aligned with this critical strategic goal. Now it's clear, at least to me, that the next step in this analytic process is one in which we begin to see that the measurement system outcomes that we've been talking about, the data themselves have intrinsic value even if they're virtual. And in this sense, they're exactly equivalent to the outcomes from R&D efforts that we might make, or the intellectual property that stands behind a patent application that we're going to make if we have a successful R&D effort. Now, I've been describing a structure within which calibration and all our other tools and strategies can be folded so that we can recognize, measure, and contain risk to our facility, and through that facility to our business, products, and customers. So, to summarize, measurements are critical if we want to achieve our asset, quality, and risk management goals. And from that perspective, looking back at calibration, that's what allows us to see that when we generate measurement outcomes through calibration activities, we are actually creating assets with real intrinsic value through our business activities. What are your thoughts on this topic? Can you think of other ways that calibration or measurement activities intersect with our desire for risk, asset, or management control? As always, please let me know what you've got to say. In addition, I'd like to extend a special thanks to my Canadian LinkedIn colleague, Suzanne Greenman. It was Suzanne that gave me this topic suggestion in the first place. I drafted something that I thought was a pretty good response. I sent it to Suzanne. What she sent back to me was far better and strengthened this presentation quite a bit. In specific, she strengthened my belief that there are a lot of activities that occur within facility maintenance operations that actually create intrinsic value, even though our financial analysis at the moment doesn't recognize them. I'm going to do more videos on this topic in the future. In the meantime, thank you for your attention.